Hey guys, how's it going? How's it going? It's your boy M.G.O.s here. Back in another video. Happy April Fool's Day, I meant to say. Um, but yeah, I hope you're well wherever you are. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying here. Messed up my intro again, didn't I? Anyway, it's your boy M.G.O.s here, back in another video. Happy April Fool's Day. And I thought, as it's April Fool's Day, I'll talk about some of my foolish and rather naive ideas for Italian football and Celtic, as well as stumbling upon my words. And I often like to make these 40-point lists. It used to be 30, but because I'm 40, believe it or not, as immature as I am, um, I probably look older than 40 and act much younger than 40. But anyway, um, I often like to come up with these 40-point lists of ideas. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it out there, especially fans of football and in particular fans of Italian football. And as ever, I appreciate your comments and general support. Um, yeah, sharing the video, liking the video and stuff like that, and enjoying my foolishness perhaps. Hopefully it won't be too cringeworthy, as I often say. But anyway, here are some of my ideas as I was typing up on Facebook, and hope to also discuss on my Facebook live videos in a slightly different way if I can think of a different way to word it so it's not quite the same. But anyway, here goes. So yeah, as I say, I like to type up or write or type up or discuss 40 different ideas for whatever topic I want to work on at the time. Um, and one of my patterns is like to have, as well as I like to use alliterations a bit, probably a bit too much, um, and I like to a letter or word that reminds me of one. I like to put first in a list. Uh, Two, I like to put second, three, third, fourth, and all that kind of thing, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so like yeah, basically in a sentence. So I have these strange patterns, admittedly, and I'd love to go through those patterns one day in the future. Number two, as part of this, like I say, so if I said such and such a company to invest um, in a town team or Celtic, like if it was like I don't know, Barclays to invest in Bari or something like that. So it'd be Barclays two being the second word in the sentence. I know it's a bit strange for me, but basically, I would love for Italian teams and Celtic to acquire as much investment as possible from, which I think I meant to say in point number one, from all possible companies, corporations, organisations, maybe associations and whatnot, and network together with N.G.O.s and that sort of thing to make the world a better place, hopefully as well, and improve the image of Italian football and maybe Italian football to learn about being more ethical and that kind of thing as well, as Celtic already does. Um, so yeah, I'd love for as many companies, organisations, sovereign wealth funds, even entire places or nations that begin with certain letters to invest in Italian teams of the same letter. So like IBM for Inter Milan and stuff like that, and or Bologna to gain investment from companies that begin with B, or Bari to gain investment from like Barclays Bank and things like that. Yeah, perhaps being rather foolish and naive of me, but yeah, I know I often talk about these dreams and ideas of mine. But yeah, I hope Italian football and Celtic will learn from each other, partner together, and learn what they can generally to improve themselves, both in terms of on and off the pitch, like in terms of gaining investment and winning trophies, hopefully in Europe and international even, especially in Italy's case, both at national and club team level. Number three, as part of that, I dream that there'll be like spaces or places for sport where like companies such as like Spiriva, which is written on it. You probably can't see, but it's written on this glass, Spiriva. But I think they're owned by a company called, if I can pronounce it right, Boehringer Ingelheim or something like that, if I pronounce it right. But yeah, they're a medical sort of company, or they deal with medicines and stuff like that, or something like that. Anyway, but yeah. So, but also like Suntory, the company which owns Lucozade, I believe, GlaxoSmithKline, which I think used to own Lucozade, if I'm not mistaken, Red Bull, the owners of Monster, Relentless, and all possible energy companies, as well as Pepsi Cola, Coca Cola. I suppose they are kind of energy companies as well, energy drink companies, sorry, in a way, but they're known more to be general soft drinks, but especially energy drinks companies, and maybe even energy companies themselves, like EDF, for Empoli or whatever, but also to invest. I'd love it if they invested into like football academies, and again, places or spaces for sport, in this case football for Italy, in as many places as possible, like providing free access and as much access as possible for young, especially young Italians, to play football. And as I say, basically as many companies as possible to invest in spaces for sport, including tea brands and all sorts of different companies. It'd be a bit of a dilemma, I think, if companies like Bacardi or Magna Cider or different drinks companies or even cigarette companies invested in or sponsor Italian teams, because I'd love for Italians to be non-smokers, teetotalers, not take drugs and not break the law. So as long as the sponsors are legal, I think they should welcome all possible investment from all possible sponsors to invest in the development of football pitches, I say, and opportunities, academies, and all that kind of thing for all possible Italians, including migrants who come to the country, and that kind of thing. And again, they can work with charities and N.G.O.s, migrant and refugee charities, to get migrants and refugees in Italy to get into football and be integrated through football. I'd love for all possible Italian citizens to be integrated through football, and I'd love for similar whatever ideas I discuss for Italian football, wherever possible. I'd love similar to be done for Celtic, similar if not the same. Number four, I'd love for like IBM, something like IBM for Inter, going back to the pattern I talked before about like four being the fourth letter in the sentence. I know, another quirky idea of mine, another foolish idea of mine. But yeah, I'd love for IBM to invest in Inter, and it could be like IBM for Inter Milan, where they invest in the club and sponsor the club and like invest in academies and things like that. Microsoft to invest in Inter Milan, international companies as much as possible. The PIF for Inter, but I was thinking, again, going back to my alliterations, maybe the PIF could invest in like Palermo or Perugia or another team that begins with P, due to my alliterations. Saudi Aramco could invest in AC Milan, for instance, or AC Monza, or another Italian team that begins with A, even AS Roma. I think that'd be quite a good fit for AC Milan, to be honest. But the CDP, I think they're called, is Italy's sovereign wealth fund, and I would love for them to invest in Roma as it's a capital club of Italy. But yeah, I'd love for all possible Italian teams to have as much investment and sponsorship from local politicians and councillors in their own area. So like the Milanese council could invest and sponsor opportunities for young people in and work with AC Milan and Inter Milan, even though they're rivals. And I'd love for as many countries as possible to have their own sovereign wealth funds, and for all possible sovereign wealth funds to invest in Italian football. SWFs for Italian football and Celtic. Sovereign wealth funds for Italian football and or Celtic, and that kind of thing. Number five, I'd love for Italians to practice as much as possible each day of the year, for as many hours as possible, as many Italians as possible, especially younger Italians, to practice for at least an hour a day, preferably, and like football to be in schools, parks, and all possible places, like parents to encourage their children to play football, teachers to encourage their students to play football and to practice. Like football could be on the curriculum. There could be at least an hour a day of PE where they play football, and they could encourage people to play football on their lunch break for an hour or so. So yeah, as many people as playing football as possible. Maybe even like in assemblies, they could have assemblies in the morning where they kick the ball around and like do keep your peas and things like that in assemblies and things like indoors, mainly, and like they could have different events outdoors as well, even on like tennis pitches where they play football, tennis, or basketball, and all sorts of different sports mixed with football. But I'd love for Italians to practice football as much as possible. Like I have a silly little joke talking about being foolish and naive, where I say like I'd love to ban all other sports in Italy so they only play football, but I wouldn't really want to ban things as a libertarian. Moving on, number six, I would love to have something where it's like remember 94, or please remember 94 to be extra polite, where it's like a part of like please help to make Italian football great again, where they bring back the pride of Italian football and remember the pain and hurt of 94 when Italy lost in the final on penalties to Brazil, and hopefully that will encourage Italians to practice as much as possible all year round and like talk about ideas about how Italy can win the World Cup. I'd love for Italians to discuss that like every day, to discuss how Italy could win the World Cup and that kind of thing. Number seven, when it comes to Celtic, as I say, I would love for similar things, if not the same, and including like as much sponsorship and investment as possible. I was thinking it would be quite interesting if Celtic in a way, given that Italian football has like many different teams, and I talk about Italian football generally, and including the national team, and Celtic's just one team in Scotland, which is even at a lower level. It would be interesting if I realise that my idea is a bit naive about also like the alliterations generally, but Celtic would probably have even more investment because if they had all sorts of companies, not just ones that begin with C, but just general companies investing. Yeah, I hope that made sense. Number 8, again, I would love for Italian football and Celtic to have partnerships as much as possible, and for Celts to help Italian football at both national and club team level to achieve as much as they can. Hopefully, even not just European Cups, but especially World Cups, even more so. And yeah, for Italy to be as good as possible, again, at club team and national level. Um, Maybe that even more so. And I hope that the FIGC, the Italian Football Organisation and football authorities, will work with local politicians, councils, people involved in politics, decision makers, businesses, and all that kind of thing in Italy, and also outside of Italy, all around the world, like NGOs, charities, and even like the EU could sponsor football pitches and be involved in places or spaces for sports in Italy and also for Celtic, perhaps. Although the UK is technically not in the EU anymore, I don't believe. I think the UK is already left or in the process of leaving. But yeah, I think it'd be cool if somehow they could still invest in those academies or sponsor those academies and opportunities for young Celts. Young Celts. I don't know why I put that in speech marks, but Celts. But yeah, to play football as much as possible, and also people from Celtic countries to support Celtic and play football as much as possible. And like in the future, hopefully they could become players for Celtic, like Celtic and Gaelic people, like people from Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and other places. I think Cornwall is one of the places, and the other 8 Celtic countries, as I call them, due to alliterations. Like many people call them Celtic nations, but I call them Celtic countries. Number 9, I'd love for Italians to prioritise football and to play as much as possible, and again to acquire investment from not just Italy but around the world. And again, organisations like the EU and others, like maybe even the UN or other organisations around the world. And again, they could sponsor pitches in for Celtic as well. It would also make me think a lot better about those organisations like the EU or the UN, and improve their reputation, at least amongst people like me who are Italian fans or Celtic fans, especially myself. And number 10, as ever, I'd love to invest in youth development. And if I could, I would love to raise my own funds for Italian football and Celtic. Like if I did manage to raise funds through ideas somehow, I would love to donate as much as possible to Italian footballers and Celtic as well as other causes. Anyway, I am out. Peace and love.